The hardest battle in transformation isn't physical, it's mental. If you don't change your mindset and emotions, no amount of action is going to create a lasting effect. Hi! Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I am so happy that you are joining me again. For those that are seeing me for the first time, hello, how are you? Okay, so we are finally concluding our transformation series. So we talked about the action, we talked about the physical, we talked about the nutrition. So now we're going to wrap it up with the mental and emotional. I wanted to put both of them together because I find that they're quite linked together, because your mental and your emotional tends to connect when it comes to how you think, because the mindset of putting things into action and doing the things comes a lot of the mental, the logical side of the brain. But then there's also the emotional side of the brain that may not let you do the action base that comes. So I really wanted to conjoin and do all these all in one video. And I hope that that will create a better effect for what I want to tell you guys. So let's jump right into it and let's get started. So, as I mentioned earlier, the mindset controls your actions. So, the way that your logical brain thinks, it's one of the most powerful tools that you can use to actually enhance your actions. But it can also hinder you by having the emotional side of your brain not allowing you to do anything. And the reason for that is very simple. Even if we have this thing of let's do this, let's do these goals, you create the list and everything, if your emotional side or even the logical side of your brain is only thinking about I'm not good enough, I'm not capable of this, you have a very negative way of seeing it, or you have these standing traumas or associations to things that have happened in the past, like, oh, I didn't do it before, how can I do it again? And so many more ways that the brain can think about, you're not going to let yourself actually go ahead and do whatever you need to do. And yes, we kind of brushed it on the action part of it because it also is connected, but I want to dive a little deeper into what you can do mindset wise and emotionally wise. And let me tell you why. Because your thoughts will create your beliefs and your beliefs will create your actions. So let me give you guys an example. If you have been told as a child or you believe that you are not disciplined, you're not someone that can go ahead and do what you set out yourself to do, if you believe it, you're not going to be disciplined. A really good example that I see of this is people believing that they're not organized. I can tell you myself, I am a little bit, I would say, a perfectionist or very methodical when it comes to organization. Any sort of task that you give me that is organization based, I am able to excel. If you tell me that you need to have it in alphabetical order, if you need to tell me that you need to have it color coded, if you need to tell me that you need to have it organized by typing, I'm really good at that. But then, for example, if you ask someone like my sister, for example, and we're siblings, so there would be a really easy correlation of us having a very similar way of thinking because we were brought up by the same people. But for example, she's not that way. She is organized, but she's not as organized as me, for example. I have a Notion page where I have everything very well categorized and very well done. Even my bookshelf that I use as a background for you guys, I have by typing, I have by book color, I have by author, I have all the authors together. But for example, she would probably just stick them on her shelf and at most she would do by author, you know? Meanwhile, I am the completely different opposite. She's still organized, but not as in comparison. That does not mean that she's not organized, but there's moments where she has come to me and said, I don't feel like I'm organized enough. Why? Because she compares herself to my level of organization when we just simply see organization in different ways. For me, because of my dyslexia, I need to have everything where it's supposed to be. I need to have my makeup all together, my books all together, my school stuff all together. I can't have things in different locations because of the way that my brain processes. But other people will have different ways of processing things. And that is the same thing with your brain. When the brain gets used to a particular thought, then it creates a belief, and from that belief, it creates your actions. So, one big example that people do all over social media is the idea that a habit gets created in 21 days. Yes and no. It is true that it's easier to go on from there once you force yourself to do it for 21 days, but that creates a habit. It doesn't create a belief. So you could create the habit of brushing your teeth 2 times a day and flossing, but it doesn't mean that you like it or anything like that. It's just become a habit. That's why there's good and bad habits. And that also stems from your beliefs, which then create your actions. One example of that is people that drink or smoke. You thought about experimenting. The experimentation became a habit. That habit became the belief that you are a smoker, the belief that you are an alcoholic, and then it became your action. You became alcoholic or you became a smoker. Of course, I'm exaggerating quite a bit. I don't expect everyone that drinks a glass of wine from time to time to see themselves as alcoholic. Please, by all means, that is not the truth. But people that become a habit may have that thought process. One of the big keys that we can do to try to reframe the thought. So if you thought you are not good enough, maybe the way that you're going to think is, I am going to try again. One of the thoughts that, for example, I did when I didn't got into college the first time, I had all these negative thoughts of thinking, I'm not good enough. Why am I trying this? Why am I doing this? And once I went out of that negative constant thought, and then I got in the next year, I reframed it. So here's what I did. The way that I started thinking is, maybe I didn't got in last year because I wasn't emotionally and mentally prepared to get in that year. And looking back, I wasn't. I had only studied for about 2 months. I definitely was completely unprepared. I completely flunked the entry exams. Mentally, I wasn't prepared because I had just told everyone around me that I wanted to get into college. I hadn't really settled that feeling on my chest. So I was having these negative thoughts of thinking I wasn't good enough, when in reality, I reframed them to make me understand that I wasn't emotionally and mentally prepared to take on this journey. And in a way, the universe let me know that by failing me. But as I said before, we never truly fail unless we stop trying. And that's exactly the message that I also want to give you. You haven't failed if you're still trying. As long as you never give up, you're still trying. The moment that I believe that I have failed in something is the moment where I have tried so many times that my only choice now is to give up because there's no other way to fix the issue. At the same time, I don't like to use the word failing because if you have tried all the way to exhaustion, buddy, you just simply tried. No one really truly fails at anything unless you haven't tried hard enough. And one of the ways that a lot of people see as failing is normally when they see a marriage. They say, I failed at my marriage. And the reason why a lot of people say that is because they believe they haven't tried hard enough at their marriage. And sometimes that is true. Some people just find themselves either cheating or doing things where they look back now and they think, I had such a good person and I just failed them. And it's true. A lot of people do mistakes in relationships, which cause them to fail in the relationship. But at the same time, if you did try counseling, if you tried therapy, if you tried everything that you could, and it still didn't work out because the compatibility stopped, the love stopped, or something else, you didn't fail. You tried what you could, and all you can do from that point on is just move on. And it's the same thing when it comes to physical, to nutrition, to mental, and everything. You're gonna have your ups and downs, and you're gonna have moments where you're gonna be like at your lowest of the low, and you're gonna be wondering, why am I failing at this? But in reality, maybe you just need to reanalyze, reboot, and restart. Emotional intelligence or emotional strength is the idea of knowing how to regulate or be aware of your emotions. That is extremely important, not only for day to day life, but even for yourself. A lot of people struggle emotionally because either they didn't have enough support or they had a lot of struggles in their life that caused them to have a harder time to regulate. A really big example, especially in society, is the idea of men having to be strong and not showing emotion. That is such a huge misconception and a huge taboo, not only in generalized, but even in specific cultures. We see a rise of the alpha male ideas on the internet, and the reality here is you are allowed to cry. You are allowed to show emotion. You are not weaker or less than for showing emotion. Who hasn't seen a video that made them tear up, or a movie? Who hasn't done and dealt with grief? Everyone has dealt with something that has either scarred them or hurt them at some point in their lives. And unfortunately, some people are in such a state of numbness because of all the stories being told to them that they have completely shut down their emotional side. And believe it or not, the emotional regulation and awareness of yourself plays a key role when it comes to all the actions that you take after that. A really big example of that is people that have shut themselves down and become numb. They tend to be a lot more cold. They tend to be a lot more unapproachable, and they tend to have a harder time connecting with people. And due to that, they normally also tend to tell the other people that they actually get along with that they feel lonely, or they feel like a loner, or they feel like an introvert, even if they actually are an extrovert. And the reason for that is very simple. You have shut down yourself emotionally to the point that people can't read you. People think that you are upset at them because they can't see either a happiness, or you almost feel like stoic in a way. But such a stoicism and such a blank face that people cannot connect to you. You start to lose friendships, you start to lose connectivity because you're not able to connect emotionally, not only to others, but also to yourself. When you shut down your emotions as well, it creates this almost like this bubble inside of you. That's the way that I like to call it, my little internal bubble. A very big thing with that is, for example, for women, is anger, it's rage. A very big thing that has come out relatively recently is rage rituals. I have to give props to Mia Magic. She was the one that has posted on it online, and then a couple news outlets picked it up and did a couple interviews with her. And I love her to bits. And one of the things that she brings out, and a lot of people talking about similar topics bring out, is the fact that women have this inner female rage that stems from all the little microaggressions or moments of frustration or other things that happen throughout the day, that all we feel like doing is just getting pissed off at someone. And it stems from just day-to-day life. And it's not just women that occurs that, men also have that. But one of the realities of men is that you could have this sense of assertiveness, and you can have this sense of like almost like manly beating in the chest kind of situation. While women, we are seen as this creature of submissiveness, where we have the underlying issue that if we are assertive, we are seen as angry, while men that are assertive, they're seen as strong. And that just simply has to do with gender situations. I'm not even going to go deep into that. But that actually stems from the emotional side of it. If you are someone dealing with grief, and for anyone that dealt with grief, you know the sensation when you see all of your family around you crying, and you are either the oldest one or considered the strong one in the family. It's most likely because you aren't crying, you are being the shoulder for everyone else to cry, and you're pushing down your emotions so far deep and not letting yourself actually heal from the situation. And I can tell you that much because I was that person when my dog passed away. My dog Flower passed away a little bit before the end of 2020. And I remember it clearly because we were still wearing masks. I was going to the vet constantly, almost like in a weekly basis. And she was deteriorating really fast. Around December, she passed away at home after trying resuscitation for like minutes on end. And at the time, I did had a moment of grief where I cried, but then everyone else around me was crying as well. And my brain, my emotional capacity just shut down. And I had, for a period of around 6 months, this feeling or this sensation of I need to be the strong one. And I was still grieving. I was still having a hard time. But the trauma of the moment made it shut down. I only realized how deep I had buried my feelings when my new pup Sienna came along. And around the time that she came, around a week later after she came, she got really, really sick and we didn't know why. And there was this one key moment where I had a panic attack because we put her on the floor, and instead of her walking like she used to, she just collapsed to the floor, almost like she had just like fainted. And my brain literally disassociated from my body and I had a panic attack. And that stemmed from me pushing my emotions. And because I had this mindset of I am the older sibling, I am a logical person, because you start to create these stories about yourself. I am the logical one. I am the strong one. I am the non-emotional one, which stems from your thoughts, which stems from your habits. And that created this compound situation where I didn't let myself grieve. I had trauma associated to it. Now I was trauma dumping into the new dog because I was panicked. And that just created a loop of me constantly having to deal with the same exact emotions, with the same exact thoughts. And that led into bigger issues. And those bigger issues affected then my actual physical health, because that's the issue with the emotional and the mental side of transforming yourself and changing yourself. It is the hardest one to do, and it's the one where you're going to feel in your body the actual changes. Another big thing that I want to talk about is the positive and negative self-talk. We all do it. Forget what everyone has ever told you. We all do it. We all have those moments where we have a very positive way of talking to ourselves, where we look in the mirror and we're like, oh my goodness, I look gorgeous. And then there's those moments where you stare in the mirror and you're like, what the heck am I doing? Because I don't love what I see. And don't get me started with the thoughts of I'm not good enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not loyal enough, or I'm not trying hard enough, or I'm not doing this or that. It is such a reality for everyone that I believe that all the people that just have gone to this point of the video and heard it, they probably were like, oh damn, I have felt this at some point in my life. Regardless how old you are, you will have that moment of thinking you are not good enough. Because unfortunately, the human mind is so incredibly strong and so flexible with all the connections of your neurons and all the beautiful things that happen inside of the brain and in our cells. But it's so incredibly dumb when it comes to certain things. Our brain creates a connection so fast And unfortunately, the negative connection and the negative belief is easier to create. So let me give you guys an example. Let's assume that you believe that you are not good enough. The brain will try to prove you right by seeing or putting you in situations to show you that you actually aren't good enough. So let me be even more specific. Let's do the hypothetical. You work a job and you have tasks to do, and let's assume that you have 10 tasks to do by the end of the day. You believe that you are not good enough to finish said tasks. So what will your brain do? It will give all kinds of excuses so that you either procrastinate more than often, you feel more tired than often. The brain will find a way to make sure that you don't do all the 10 tasks. Maybe you'll do 9, maybe you'll do 8. You'll be close of it, and it will be enough to prove to you that you are not good enough. Because the brain has the capability of proving to you the truth. And because it has the ability of trying to prove you the truth, the more negativity you bring onto yourself, the more negative your life is going to be, because your brain is going to pick the choices to bring you more negativity. If you believe that you overeat, it will be more likely that your brain is going to make you overeat because he wants to prove to you that your belief is true. And the reality here is that it's the same thing for the opposite side. If you believe that your life is positive, that your life is good, that things are going good, either by you reinforcing it with affirmations, with ways of thinking, with journaling, with healing, with therapy, whatever you use, it's also going to have your brain, because it's smart, to try to prove to you that your life is good. If you believe that you are a good student and you put your mind and soul into it, your brain is going to prove to you that you are a good student. By what? By making you better at studying, by making you more concentrated, by bringing on to you. And because of that, that negative versus positive self-talk is so important for you to catch up very easily, to catch up quickly before you start actually making those connections on the negative side of the situation, so that you can flip them around and stop having those thoughts. Those same thoughts that will create the actions that will stop your progress when it comes to transforming your life in multiple different facets. Because the mental and emotional side of your brain, if it does not connect with you, you're not even going to start the physical, the nutritional, the career, the study, or whatever other transformation that you want to have in your life. So how can we start changing things? So one of the big ways that you can start changing things is by doing an action plan and actually reframe it. So find one negative belief that you have and you need to start reframing it. So let's pick up an idea. Let's assume that one negative thought or one negative wave that you have of thinking is that you are not good enough. If you believe that you are not good enough, so how can we reframe it? The way that we can reframe it is, I am trying every day to improve little by little. That's one way to reframe it. Another thing is also understanding the emotions associated with that feeling. Is it a feeling of guilt? Is it a feeling of fear? Is it a feeling of trauma? Is it associated to something that happened in your life? And once you actually break it down and you sit with it and you try to figure out the situation of where it comes from, then you can start to actively work at it. Another thing that you can do is a daily check-in. So either in the morning, at night, middle of the day, whenever you want, is actually sitting with yourself for a second and thinking, okay, how do I feel? Why do I feel it? And understanding it. Okay, why do I feel this sensation in my body? Why do I feel these things up in here? And then once you understand the why, you need to do the steps to fix it, because that's the only way to turn this around. Another thing that you can do is then create an affirmation, like a self-affirmation. What I mean by that is, don't Google it. It's not worth it. If you try to Google affirmations, let's be honest, they're generic. They don't work for your situation. So let me give you guys an example. right now I am recording you guys this video, and whether I like it or not, I am kind of an introvert. Like I have like a bit of like a nervousness when I talk to people, when I talk in public. And also, this makes me a little nervous because I want to bring my best possible to you guys. So I have this feeling of like nervousness, a little tightness on my chest. So if I take a deep breath and I think about the sensation, and then what kind of affirmation can I do to myself to make me feel a little bit more relaxed right now? So the affirmation that I could do is, for example, I am someone that I love to teach. I love to advise people, even though I feel the way that I feel. And I am allowed to feel that way because this is a higher calling. A little odd, a little long, but that's fine. Right now, I feel a little bit more relaxed. Why? Because I told my body, I told my brain, I told myself that even though I have this little feeling, that everything is fine. That I'm doing this because there's a reason to do it. And that's why I put on makeup and turn on lights and turn on the camera and grab a microphone and I talk to a camera. That's why I do it. And that creates enough of a justification for me to keep going. And that is what matters in the end. And that is the same thing that you need to do to yourself. You need to create these affirmations that are personal to you and to what you feel. Of course, try to make them always in a positive tonality or in an action-based tonality so that it actually helps you. Don't go negative. Don't go in the sense of like, I'm not X, Y, and Z. No. Always do the opposite, positive type of talk. Another thing that you can do is visualization. Visualization is really good, especially if you already do meditation. It's really easy to create visualization. So visualization is the act of you trying to see or trying to feel in your body the sensation of what you're dealing with. So for example, if you're feeling nervous, you're going to calm yourself and visualize yourself. You're going to close your eyes and you're going to visualize yourself not being nervous. If you're feeling like you're not good enough, you're going to close your eyes and you're going to visualize yourself in a moment where you feel good enough. That's what you're going to do. And it's easier said than done. It does take some practice, but if you actually get into it, there's one study, and I will probably plop an image right here. There was a study where they picked up some people where they told them to exercise. A group was basically told to exercise. One group was told to do only visualization, and then one group was told to visualize and exercise. And they came to the realization that the people that only did visualization, they still had results when it came to their physical body, even though they didn't exercise at all. And the people that did both had better results than the people that only exercised. I'll put up an image in here just for you guys to see, and I'll plop a link below as well for those that wish to read it. It was a really interesting read of the correlation of the brain capabilities on the subconscious towards the physical. It is a really, really interesting thing to read, and I'll link it below, and I'll probably plop a little image here just to show you how it looks like. So, first of all, how are you feeling? This may have been a lot. Here's what I want to give you as a homework. Find one thing, one singular thing that you are actively struggling with when it comes to your mental or emotional or the connectivity of both. Connect with it and try to figure out where it comes from, what is the emotion associated with it, and then do exactly what I told you. Do an affirmation, do a visualization, break it down into the why. Ask it directly why and what it needs to change so that that feeling can do a shift. And believe it or not, starting with one singular thing, it may feel like not that much, but depending on what you pick, it can really, really shift your life. The reason why I say that is I had to deal with the trauma of my pet passing. And that was really, really hard for me. I had to get into therapy. I had to do a lot of internal work because that actually brought out a lot of issues along with it. One singular thing that happened in my life in one day created a ricochet throughout my whole personality. And it stemmed from really, really back then. I had to deal with multiple types of traumas in my life. I had to deal with so many things, and all I did my whole life was just pushing down and keep it going, keep my life going. And one of the big issues that we have is that a lot of people are just living, they're not appreciating life. And the issue with that is that if you just go by life and you're not actually living and spending time in your life, appreciating every day, appreciating every moment, and you're not taking into consideration everything that you're doing, you're just going to see your life go by really fast and you're going to look back and think, what did I do? Because unfortunately, life is finite. It's not infinite. And the problem with life being finite is that we all know that one day we are not going to be here anymore. We know for a fact that our body deteriorates. Like, there's nothing that we can do about it. The aging process is a thing. We reach a certain age where we stop creating more muscle unless we actively go to the gym and put in the work. And there's this process that your body does that will make you older and older and older. And that's good when you're growing up. But once you reach a certain point, it's actually growing down, it's growing older. And you letting your thoughts and your emotions wreak havoc and take control over your life, not in a positive, light, heartwarming, wonderful way where you feel your emotions deeply and you let your heart soar and you feel happy when you feel happy and you feel sad when you feel sad and you feel all these emotions and you let yourself feel. And instead, you push it down and you let yourself just be in this constant loop of, I shouldn't be feeling this. Let me push it down. Let me feel numb. Let me feel worse. Let me push it down. Let me feel worse. It doesn't work. All you're going to do is just create this story of your life of people don't want to be near you because they can't connect with you. You can't connect emotionally, so you don't have good relationships. Because you don't have good relationships, you feel like a loner. And then because you feel like a loner, you create that title for yourself. And then you start to create titles. I'm not good enough. I'm a loner. I am this. I am that. And you create all these things just like I did when my dog passed away and I shut down my emotions of grief. I am the strong one. I am the older one. I need to protect this person. I need to protect that person. And then you start to create the idea of logical thoughts of she was already old, she was already sick for, it doesn't matter if she was old and sick. She was your pet for years and you created a connection. That connection, when it was severed, when she passed away, it hurt you. And instead of you dealing with the issues, you pushed it down. You didn't grieve. That was the story that I told myself. And I'm sure that you have a story that you have told yourself to push down on your emotions at some point in your life. And to this day, you might still be pushing years later. So this is my invite for you to look at your emotions, journal, meditate, whatever you need to do. Get therapy if need be. I am the first person to say that therapy is a wonderful thing for people to get. Okay? And if that helps you, go on ahead. I got therapy myself. I don't regret the times that I had therapy. Currently, I'm not in therapy. I haven't felt the need for it. But if I felt the need again, I would be the first person in line trying to find a therapist because I find it a wonderful tool. Because sometimes we have a hard time communicating with ourselves and going down to the pits of hell and trying to figure out what's going on down there. And that's fine. So please, if you feel like you actually need help, do seek medical attention. Okay? So that concludes the last episode of the transformation series. How do you feel? This was a bit of a journey. We had a couple ups and downs and a couple changes, but I really wanted to go ahead and talk about all these topics. As I said before, if you have any ideas or things that you really want to see from me, please leave them in the comment section. I'll be happy to go ahead and read them. You could also DM them to me. Don't forget that there's two pages. There's the podcast page and my personal page. We have That Girl Magik podcast on Instagram, and I am Karina Franco also on Instagram. Those are both of my pages, the podcast and my personal one. Go ahead, you can comment, DM, whatever you enjoy to get in contact with me. I am more than willing to not only listen to you, but also to give you whatever help that I can. If you have any suggestions or anything that you want to tell me, go on ahead as well. And I hope to see you next week. And I hope that this has helped you in some sort of way. And I'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.